Episode 41. The Family. Wife? Hearing that word, everyone in the elevator felt their knees were weak. Coach Dean swallowed and pushed the button to close the door immediately. Seeing that, Jake felt something was odd and frowned. Suddenly, he heard a huge noise and a woman's voice. "Help!" Serena's weak voice came into his ears. It was her. Jake walked towards the direction of her voice, feeling oddly disturbed. Feeling things had quieted down, Serena was suddenly relieved. Those people had left her for real. However, it hurt so much. The acute pain in her lower stomach was over the limit that she could take. She raised an arm, wanting to take the phone out of her pocket, but failed. Her phone was dropped on the floor next to her waist, but she could not reach it. The screen was on. She could vaguely see the name Henry popping on it. "Serena?" Henry sounded worried. "Don't worry! I have called the police! They will—" Serena could no longer hear what Henry said next. Was she dying? It hurt so bad. Jake kicked the door of the yoga room open and immediately saw the skinny woman lying in a pool of blood. Serena had little fabric covering her body, most of her skin exposed. Underneath her, a pool of blood was scary to look at. Almost driven by his instincts, Jake ran up to check her situation. "Serena!" Serena was so pale that her face was as white as a piece of paper. Breathing rapidly, she was covered in cold sweat. Her eyes were shut as her eyelashes fluttered slightly. Jake's eyes, that had always been cold, were melted by the violent scene he saw. "Serena! Wake up!" Jake sat her straight and patted her cheek. Holding her stomach, she was sobbing with her lips shivering silently. Tears fell down her cheeks, making his heart tremble. Serena was in such great pain that she almost fainted. She thought she heard something and felt something. Opening her eyes with difficulty, she thought she had seen that person. "Jake!" Whispering, she was as quiet as a mosquito. "Don't worry. I will take you to the hospital right away." His voice was as cold as always. But it might be her illusion. She could almost hear fear in his voice. He was scared. What was he scared of? That she might die? Amused by her own thought, Serena felt a bit sore. Has Jake ever feared anything? No, never. He had been like that in her previous lifetime. And of course, this lifetime would be no exception. If she could, she would love to see this man's weakness. However, she was probably dying. The color of Serena's blood was like a dagger, stabbing Jake in the eyes and heart. He immediately thought of a possibility. Miscarriage. His heart throbbing, he covered her with his jacket and quickly carried her with his arms, while catching a glimpse of the screen of her phone. Henry. At the most desperate and helpless time of her life, the person she called immediately was Henry. Grabbing her phone, Jake rushed downstairs with Serena in his arms, with a blank mind. He did not want to think about it, about why she would call Henry instead of himself, about why the Plan B pill she took was not effective. However, his heart was tortured by a ghost. It was almost suffocating. He walked downstairs and saw 2 police cars parked in front of the door, with those people in the elevator inside. However, someone was missing. The one who was their leader was not there. The ambulance had already arrived. Jake did not know how he got into the ambulance and arrived at the hospital. All he could think of was the words of the doctor. "The fetus is less than a month old. The patient is bleeding too heavily for us to keep the baby. What is your relationship to the patient?
I am her husband.
All right. Sign here and go pay the bill. It can't wait. Jake signed and asked,
She took the morning after pill. So why—
Morning after pill? The doctor's voice was sharp. That is the least safe way of contraception. Would it kill you to use a condom? Men! Seeing that Jake was still dazed, she growled, Why are you still standing here? Run! Jake nodded blankly and went to pay the bill. Miranda Young, Jake's assistant, who had rushed over after hearing the news, was almost mortified. Oh my God, was this the CEO she knew? He was yelled at by a doctor without getting mad. Such a crazy world. Seeing that he was covered in blood, Miranda felt sympathetic and took the bill in his hand. Mr. Robinson, I'll go. When Henry arrived at the hospital, he saw Jake sitting in front of the emergency room. Mr. Robinson! Hearing Henry's voice, Jake looked his way with narrowed eyes. Seeing the blood on him, Henry was scared. Serena!
She's inside.
Jake raised his chin. I caught those criminals, but one ran away. They said that he was behind all this. Jake's eyes suddenly lit up as he asked,
Where are they?
Those scum almost cost Serena her life. Scared by his tone, Henry answered, At the police station. Before Jake said anything, the door of the emergency room was opened. The surgery was successful. Who is the family? Henry wanted to answer, but Jake was even faster than him. He quickly walked up and said,
I am her husband.
The doctor sighed and said, We lost the fetus. Please pay attention to the patient's emotions. I don't think she knows that she was pregnant yet. If you can, try not to tell her.